Hello and welcome to this week's qigong video. The observant among you will notice that I am sitting down today. Why is this? Well, a number of reasons. Number one of the main selling points of qigong for me is the fact that the moves can be adapted to be done by people who, for whatever reason, can't stand, or maybe can't stand for the entire duration of the shibashi set, which when you're doing it in full probably takes 40 odd minutes. Another reason why I'm doing it seated is because some of you will know I do a lot of work with people with cerebral palsy, lots of whom watch this video and lots of whom are actually wheelchair bound, so they haven't got the option of standing up. And the third reason that I'm doing it seated is because I've got a dodgy hip at the moment, and I've decided that I delivered my session yesterday standing up, and I thought, actually no, that's a bit painful. So I'm doing what I would tell anybody else to do under similar circumstances, which is, well, sit down to do the qigong. So I am demonstrating self-care, something which I think is very important for everybody to do. So if you're standing, I'm sure you know about the good posture, but this gives me a chance to demonstrate a good seated posture. Now, I'm using my therapy stool, which doesn't have any arms, which is ideal, but if you have to work in a chair with arms, that's okay, maybe just have to work around the arms, but ideally you want to be in a chair that doesn't restrict your arm movement, because then you can still continue to make the arm movements exactly as you would do if you were standing. The normal advice applies about back nice and straight, neck nice and straight, chin tucked in, crown of head pointing up at ceiling. The advice about engaging core abdominal muscles also still stands. The other standard thing is that my feet still need to be a hip width apart. And normally at this stage I'll be saying, and have your knees very gently bent. Well, obviously my knees are completely bent because I'm sitting down. You can, if you sit in as good a posture as possible, get almost as many benefits from the qigong's moves as you would if you were standing. The main difference is that you obviously are not weight bearing, which is quite an important thing to keep doing. But also there are some moves when you transfer your weight from onto one leg and then back to the centre and then onto the other leg. And on the face of it, it looks as if you can't possibly do that when you're seated, but actually you can. There's two ways of doing it. You can still slightly press down with the one leg compared with the other. But the other thing you can do is to slightly raise the heel of the opposite foot. So if the instruction is to dip slightly, to put slightly more weight onto your left leg, then you can mimic that by slightly raising the heel of your right leg when you're in the seated position. It's important to get the seated position as near ideal as possible, which means that you don't want to be sitting with your knees tightly closed or a closed angle on your hip. You want things to be as open as possible because this is how the energy flows. But again, you may not be able to get the totally ideal position, but getting as close to it as you can is still beneficial. Just because you can't do it perfectly doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I think one of the things I say most often is it's not about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it perfectly for you. Now, if you are, for whatever reason, having to do the moves and adapt them for you to be seated, this probably means that you have got a problem with your body. However major or minor it is, I've got one lady who at the moment has got severe plantar fasciitis in one foot. So she's tried doing the moves seated but doesn't find it quite as helpful. So she tried doing it standing, and I'll find out next week if she's decided that actually she can manage that. Because that's what she would prefer to do, although she won't be standing in totally the ideal position. But if you are having to do it seated, still remember to keep everything in your body nice and open. As open as it can be, remembering that energy flows best through joints that are loose and open and all that. Think about water flowing through a pipe. It has to go through a corner that can obstruct the flow. Okay, so if you're going to be standing, get yourself standing in your best bear stance. If you're going to be seated, get yourself into your best possible seated position. Trying to avoid anything which is liable to obstruct the flow. Something that would obstruct the flow of your blood is going to obstruct the flow of your chi. So if you know you're sitting in a way that you know would obstruct the flow of blood through a joint, then you probably shouldn't be doing it for your qigong. So get yourself seated or standing into your best posture. And just for a moment, I want you to just breathe. Just use your breath to tune into your body. Use your breath to tune into your mind. Remind yourself that this is your time. And to an extent, I want you to, well, I definitely want you to take from this what you need. But just a gentle reminder that you will only take from this as much as you're prepared to put in. So the closer you can get to ideal stance is good. So take a moment to decide how you'd like to feel at the end of this session. And then with yourself seated in a nice, open stance, as open as you can get, just like you to close your eyes and to imagine that you're in a lift. And the lift is right up at the top. And this lift has got glass walls, and it looks out over the most beautiful countryside. And I want you to imagine that with every out breath, the lift gently floats down floor by floor. Just let the lift float down at a rate that you're comfortable with. And eventually, let yourself come down to the ground. And turn your hands so that your palms are facing backwards. Make sure that your arms are not clamped closely to your side. Try to make sure that your hands and fingers are also loose and light, and just get a feeling of complete emptiness in your arms and hands. And as you breathe, notice how your arms actually want to respond to your breath. And then when you're ready, add a little bit of intent to that. So that as you breathe in, your arms float out in front of you. And as you breathe out, they just sink back down. And you raise your arms as far as you can manage in one gentle, easy breath. And only raise them as high as your shoulders are happy to take them. But remember, this move is to pull energy up through your lower dantian. But don't take your hands too high. As you breathe in, your arms float up. As you breathe out, they sink all the way back down. And then we'll do this move twice more. As you breathe out, just let your hands float down at the bottom. Just relax and let go. The next move is all about getting energy into your middle dantian. So this time it starts the same. As you breathe in, let your arms float up. Then turn your palms inwards and let your arms spread out. And as you breathe out, they float back in and back down. Try to really feel your chest and lungs expanding on the in-breath. And feel them relax as you breathe out. Try to let the movement of your hands inwards and outwards be in response to the expansion and then the relaxation of your chest. Remember, small is beautiful in qigong. As you breathe in, your hands float up and spread out, and as you breathe out, they float back in and back down. We'll do this move twice more. At the bottom, just relax and let go. Then we're going to paint rainbows. This time as you breathe in, bring your hands up. Maybe imagine that you're holding a ball of energy between your hands. And as you breathe out, sink slightly on your left hand side or raise the heel of your right foot as your right arm slowly uncurls. And as you breathe in, bring everything back to the center point. Then do the same on the other side. Letting the left hand uncurl and raising the left heel if you're seated. This move is called painting rainbows. And you can easily see that actually your hands are painting the shape of a rainbow as they move through the air. And we'll do this move twice more. As you breathe in, your hands come up to the top. And as you breathe out, turn your palms out and let your hands just gently float down. And as you breathe in, let them rise up again. And on the out breath, let them sweep down by your side again. This move is called parting the clouds. As you breathe out, you can imagine that you're pushing away any clouds that surround you. Doesn't matter how big the circles you make are, as long as those circles are comfortable for your body. Don't reach up too high. Don't hunch your shoulders. We'll do this move twice more. And then last time for this move. And this time as you breathe out, I want you to gently bring your hands into position just above your lap, ready to balance your chi. So as you breathe in, I want you to imagine that you're feeling around a small ball, and as you breathe out, you gently push it down. Keep this move very small. Take your hands no higher than your heart. Breathe in, smooth around that ball. Breathe out and imagine you push it underwater. We'll do this move twice more. And then the last time, as you breathe in, smooth around the ball. Then this time, I want you to imagine maybe that you're pushing that ball into your belly button, and just let your hands come to rest in front of your belly button or in your lap or wherever is most comfortable. And just for a moment, I want you to sit, just breathe and just let everything settle back to where it should be. And then when you're ready, let's get on with the meditation. As you're getting yourself settled, I'll just remind you of a few important points. First of all, a mindfulness meditation is not one where I expect you to keep your mind clear, because that's not what mindfulness is about. Mindfulness is about learning to become aware of what your mind is doing, what signals that your body is sending you, and if you need to, giving you a technique to actually bring yourself back to this moment. I've had a request to do a meditation that's about dealing with anxiety, and so that's what I'm going to do. Because the thing is, a little reminder that what causes stress and anxiety isn't actually the situations going on around us. It's actually the thoughts that we have about the situation. And very often we have thoughts about things that and worries about things that actually we can't do anything about because we've got no control over them. You ask anyone who's ever been diagnosed with a severe illness and has been put on that wonderful roller coaster called the NHS, it's very easy to feel that you actually have no control, and your amount of control is actually very limited. And so it's very important under those sorts of circumstances to have techniques which mean that when you recognise, when you become mindful that your thoughts are going into all that what if scenario, that you learn to recognise that and have a technique, usually called awareness of the breath, that means that you can try and stop those thoughts in their tracks. And no, it's not easy. And one of the things I will say during the meditation is, it doesn't matter how many times you notice that your mind's wandered away from what I'm suggesting you focus on, that's not important. What's important is that you notice what your mind is doing and then bring it back to focusing on whatever's going on here and now. Because the bottom line is, whether you are dealing with an issue of your own that's causing anxiety, or whether you're waiting for a loved one to have surgery, or you're waiting for a diagnosis, you fretting about it actually isn't going to do anything to alter the outcome. All you fretting about it does is deplete your reserves. I mean that you have absolutely no energy left to cope with things when you really need it. So mindfulness isn't a panacea. It's not going to make all your problems go away, but it can help you deal with your problems in a more proactive way. So I've rabbited on for longer than I normally would about mindfulness. So I hope that's given you time to get yourself seated or lying down or whatever in your comfortable space, and make sure you're not going to be disturbed, turn your phone off and all that sort of thing. And as ever, first thing I want you to do is I'm going to invite you to listen to the sound of the singing bowl. Sound it 3 times, and I'd like you, the 3rd time, I'm going to let it die away quite naturally, and I'd like you to listen for the sound of the singing bowl and try and follow that sound as it fades into silence. And as you follow the sound of the singing bowl into the silence, I'd like to invite you to just notice any other sounds that are now reaching your ears. Don't go reaching out to find the sounds, just let them come to you quite naturally. Let go of any natural tendency to classify them or identify them. There's no point in doing that. And just get the thought in your mind that they're sounds and they're not really that important. And then I'd like you to become aware of where your body is and what it's on, whether it's a bed or a chair or a stool or the floor. Notice how your body is being supported. Maybe make sure that you're completely comfortable. Notice any signals coming from your body. And then I'd like you to let your attention move even further in, and I'd like you to focus your awareness onto the simple act of breathing. Just to notice every in-breath and every out-breath. Now, normally our breathing happens so automatically we don't pay it any attention at all. So focusing on your breathing is something that part of your mind is probably going to say, oh, I don't want to do this, this is silly. And so chances are that you're going to find that your mind is going to want to wander away. Well, do you know what? That's what happens when you have a normal human mind. It wants to think about things. Problem is, the sort of things it wants to think about don't necessarily make us feel so good. So if you discover that your mind is wandering off to something that's making you anxious or stressed or worried, maybe acknowledge the thought that's taken your mind away, but then I just want you to gently lead your mind back to focusing once more on every in-breath and every out-breath. And if you have to keep bringing your mind back because you keep getting distracted by whatever, by your thoughts, maybe by something else, well, that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're rubbish at this mindfulness lark. It means that you're a normal human being. And every time your mind gets distracted, just gently lead it back to every in-breath and every out-breath. Because mindfulness isn't about clearing your mind, it's about being aware of what your mind is doing. And it's about learning how to change the focus of your mind if what your mind is doing isn't making you feel so good. So however many times your mind gets distracted, pulled away by whatever is causing you fear or worry, that's okay. Every time you notice that your mind has been taken away, I want you to give yourself a huge gold star because you're being mindful. But then I want you to let your mind gradually bleed it back to focusing on every in-breath and every out-breath. Let your breath be an anchor to this moment. Because whatever's going on, you can only cope with what is happening in this moment. And whatever's going on, it's not happening in this moment, because this moment is for you. So just as many times as your mind wanders away, just as many times gently lead it back to focusing on every in-breath and every out-breath, not judging yourself, not telling yourself off, but gently and compassionately leading your mind back to focusing on just this breath and just this moment. So what do you notice about your breath? Maybe you notice air moving in your nose or throat. Maybe you notice muscles moving in your chest or in your tummy. Just let your mind rest with whatever comes most strongly to mind. And just leading your mind back every time it wanders away. Without telling yourself off. And it may not be easy and it may take practice, but that's what this video is for, to help you practice. Because right here, right now, all that matters is just this breath coming in, just this breath going out. And just take it one breath, one moment at a time. Let your breath be an anchor to this moment and to any good feelings that you have right here, right now. So, keep your focus on every in-breath and every out-breath. And then, slowly, spread your awareness out to the whole of your body. Be aware of any good feelings that you have right here, right now. And then let your awareness spread further out so that you become aware once more of the room and maybe sounds from inside and outside the room. And I'm going to sound my singing bowl again. I'm going to sound it 3 times. If you've got your eyes shut, keep your eyes shut until the bowl has sounded for the 3rd time. Open your eyes and bring yourself back to normal awareness. But as you do, remind yourself that anytime you need to, you can find that sense of relaxation and calm that I hope you've got now, simply by bringing your awareness to your breath. I hope that's been interesting. I hope that's been helpful. If you've got any requests that you'd like to make for next week's video, you know how to contact me. If you enjoy these videos, please feel free to share them with anyone else you think might enjoy them. And if you're left thinking, oh, I wish I had a little bit longer video time, please pop on over to the Patreon page and consider sponsoring me for the massive sum of $2 a month. Okay, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you next week.